In our 14th episode, Brandon and I explore the 11th manager intelligence skill, intellect. You will learn what this skill is, why the best managers have honed and developed it, and some practical tools you can utilize to develop this skill to lead strong. Let's dive right in.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Leading Strong, the place to be to level up your leadership effectiveness on one of your most important roles, engaging your employees. Managers are responsible for at least 70% of their employees' engagement. The best managers, like you, lead strong by constantly honing and developing the skills needed to keep their teams engaged. Your hosts, Darren Veresamy and Brandon Miller, are the co-founders of 34 Strong, a company that creates great places to work. Their team has worked in Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, and small businesses to lead strong. Now over to Darren.
Welcome to Season 1 of Leading Strong, where we will dive deep to grow your manager intelligence. I'm your host, Darren Veresamy, here to serve you in your continued discovery and growth to lead strong. This episode of Leading Strong is brought to you by 34 Strong, where organizations just like yours become great places to work. To find out more, check out 34strong.com. Hey, good afternoon, Brandon.
Hey, Darren.
So it's hard to believe we're in the bonus section of manager intelligence. We're going to get into one of the bonus manager intelligence skills that we call intellect. We've all heard of that word. You might be thinking of what the heck does intellect have to do with a skill? Is it something that we can grow, and how does that actually play into a manager and growing our skills as a manager and in leading people? And here's the thing, it's not about becoming the smartest person in the room per se and just knowing a whole bunch of stuff and being unable to connect it to others. It's about the work that we're doing, though, to grow our brain computing power and growing our awareness of how our brain works, what we're thinking about, and then being able to apply that into managerial scenarios here. It can be really a strength in times of change and when we're going through transitions and when we're growing. And there's an old saying, there's no comfort in the growth zone and there's no growth in the comfort zone. And I think this is a perfect segue. We're actually going to lead off today with a book that we're extremely fond of. It is Limitless by Jim Kwik. Now, this book was released earlier in 2020. I think it was in April of 2020. Jim Kwik has...
Way back then,
right? Way back in April of 2020, and the world seems so different and yet so similar to what we're experiencing right now. But Limitless is a book that was written by Jim Kwik, and he has coined himself and truly is a brain coach. And I don't think there's anybody that's better positioned to have written this book. A quote that I want to share with you that comes right out of this book that really lays the foundation is, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. Now, Jim's story is really powerful in the fact that as a boy, he had suffered many really damaging brain injuries. He was called in class. One of his teachers called him the boy with the broken brain. And now he's a brain coach. He is coaching people on how to access parts of their brain that maybe they didn't even think possible, and how we can grow it and really become limitless and go beyond those limitations that we put up upon ourselves psychologically and within our intellectual capacity. Limitless is described as kind of operating manual for your brain, Brandon. I think it's powerful. And the tagline is upgrade your brain, learn anything faster, and unlock your exceptional life. I think a lot of the tools that I've seen that he's put forth, he's talked about being able to level up in speed reading, in terms of the foods that we fuel our brain with, and just breathing patterns, how we're sleeping, different techniques that we can do that will help level up and strengthen our overall brain functionality. That's going to help level up our overall intellect and how we're showing up as managers and how we're showing up and leading people. If we're showing up into our day and we're already exhausted and our brain's already beat, how effective are we going to be at managing people, right? So he gets into some of the tools that can help us to manage our brain so it can show up strong. And that's a great foundation for where we're going to go. Take us in, Brandon, into, on the heels of that, what it's like when a manager is strong in this intellect skill and when we're on a team where a manager is really strong in this skill.
What we notice with managers strong in this skill, keyword number one is they are continuous improvers. So they are in a space where they operate from that growth mindset that we talked about with past skills. They work from that place and they're always challenging themselves, always looking for room and places to grow and expand. And they challenge others. So what we notice with this skill set when it's very high is that it's a culture of learning, a culture of growth. And in it, it's going to make the use of every bit of space there is available in the intellect. So to give an example, when we think about IQ, it's been said that IQ is fixed. And I think you and I have the theory, and many others agree with this, that though IQ may not be movable, it doesn't mean we all maximize it. It doesn't mean we get the most from it. And so wherever your IQ lands, whether you're a super high IQ person, mid IQ, low, wherever you land, you can get the most from it and then grow other parts, as we'll talk about in EQ, that can expand and even take it further. So it's pretty awesome that we are not limited except by our own initiative. That's what stops us. And so the intellect manager growing this skill is they are continuous improvers and they build that in their team. So on the low end, these are those that start to settle in their ways, Darren. They get comfortable. They're okay with, I got what I got. I've earned a degree. I've maybe made the position I want. I'm earning the money that I'm comfortable with. And in that comfort zone, as you said before, there's no growth there. There's no challenge. There's no fresh opportunity. And so as we look at this in particular, what we're talking about is in that low end. This is the old adage, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You get stuck in this spot and team members are looking at you going, hey, where are we going from here? What's the next phase? And so this is one we strongly encourage that intellect skill to advance.
And in that vein, I think what's really important to make a mention of here, if you do find as you're listening, and maybe that's where you do land, it's powerful, as we advise oftentimes on these episodes as you're listening in, take inventory of yourself. Self-awareness is so critical. So if you were to rate your scale on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, that what Brandon just talked about, yeah, that's me. I do kind of operate by the land of you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? Maybe that's where you're at. It's powerful that we start with that self-awareness. So that's what a 1 looks like. And when you're on the 5 side, you're on the higher end of that. And here's the thing that's really important. If you do find yourself leaning into the state of you can't teach an old dog new tricks, we've done it this way since the beginning of time, so that's the way we're going to do it. One thing that we know with the generational transfer that's been taking place is more and more millennials are stepping into the workforce and are actually becoming the bulk of the workforce and the leadership elements. That whole beat of it, we've just done it this way because that's the way we've always done it. That's not going to hold muster. That's not going to create engagement. And we've got to go back and think of who are we being as an organization that is going to attract and retain the top talent. And if we're in a place where we're just stuck in that place, over time, what we run the risk of doing is not only struggling to manage and to grow to where we need to be, but we also run the risk of not even attracting the right talent because people are so much more aware. It used to be you could put out an ad, right, Brandon? You say, this is what I'm looking for, and you'd have a stream of candidates going through and applying and saying what it is. Now what we have to think of is organizations, people will kind of evaluate, well, do I even want to work there? I've heard that the experience of working there is not great. So what does that look like? And we know that right now there's been ups and downs in the job market. There's been a lot of challenges just as a result of COVID. We still have to think on the long arc of right now, building our culture strong, leading strong right now so that we can, as we get to the other side of whatever challenges your organization has gone through, that we can still have teams that are intact, that are really signaling this so we can really attract the best of the best as well as we're going through. There's some key techniques that we can get into to be able to grow this skill. We both have a lot to say about these here, but why don't you take some of the ways that you think that we can grow the skill of intellect? Because this doesn't always come top of mind for us. We don't always think about ways that we can grow this. And there's actually some very simple techniques to sharpen that saw and really invest in growing this skill.
Absolutely. And that's the first one I was going to say is sharpening the saw. So continue educating yourself. As Covey says in his work, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, sharpening the saw staying in a place where I'm advancing, I'm growing, and I'm doing that by challenging myself with different courses of education, different pathways of learning, podcasts, webinars, books. Patrick Lencioni, we spoke about him in a previous podcast. He has a book, Ideal Team Player. And I love his comment about the ideal team player being humble, hungry, and smart. And if you just took those three and said, sharpening the saw, you got to be humble because you know that there's more to learn. If you're hungry, you're looking to grow. You're looking for that next step. And wherever you land in the generational migration that's occurring in the workforce today, you're never too old to lose your step. You're never too old to lose your edge, your ambition, your hunger. Because when it comes to smart, there's intellectual smart, IQ, and there's emotional smart, EQ. Both of those are impacted by sharpening the saw. And in our next episode on EQ, we're really going to give you some insights into this. So Darren, I would say that's a primer. That's a primer for growing the intellect skill.
Big time. Yeah, we've got those pieces. When we step into the next episodes on EQ, that's going to be some of the bonuses that we get into in that place too. So I really like the sharpening the saw because we do have to keep growing and keep the process growing. I'm going to just share a couple of just quick bursts with you as well. Our motion creates our emotion, right? That's something that Tony Robbins has said time and time again. So making sure that we're moving and creating opportunities to move, stepping away. Sometimes we can get so linked into just driving to get something finished and just strapping in, and we're not giving our brain a chance to rewire and getting one of the most important assets for it to function really well, flowing really well, and that's oxygen. Just moving a little bit can create that. One of the other things that I will share is making sure that we're training our brain. Remember, I've said this many, many times, and Jim Quick talks about this in Limitless. First, we create our habits, and then our habits create us. So train your brain. What are the habits that will keep your mind sharp? Is it resting? Is it how are you sleeping at night? What's the quality of your sleep like at night as we're going through? And for some of you, maybe you have a morning routine, maybe you don't. For me personally, I'm really big on the morning routine because that's a chance to literally warm my brain and body up to be ready to step into the day. It's also a point in my day that I know that I'm going to have every single day, regardless of the good, the bad, and the ugly that are going to come afterwards or that might have come the day before. It's a reset button. And that's how I look at it, is it's a habit to be able to restart the brain and to be able to say, what are the ways that I can grow? Brandon, I know you've been through a lot personally in working through managing and really taking your sleep to a whole different level. Can you just say anything about that for our listeners? Because that's been something that I've gotten to personally observe you go through, and I know it's made a huge difference in you personally, not only as a leader in 34 Strong as we lead this organization, but also just in parenting and being a spouse and grandparent, right? Because you've got littles that are running around the place too. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I would say it is not uncommon for us to put sleep as a lower priority. And I think new research is helping us to find out how impactful sleep is on our mental clarity, health, well-being. So much of our decision-making quality is going to come back to how well we're resetting, refreshing our bodies. Darren is the morning lark and I am a night owl. And so for me, my nighttime regimen is very important. So those places where I'm going to read, those places where I'm going to go for prayer and meditation, time I spend with my kids, time I spend with my wife, all of that regimen, when I'm on that and I'm adhering to a sound sleep schedule, getting the hours that my body has taught me it needs, the mornings go much better, even though I would not fancy myself a morning person. The mornings go much better. I am much more clear, and I find throughout the day my energy is high. I'm much more likely to engage in exercise, much more likely to stay consistent with my healthy habits, and I can trace that back to quality of rest. So if that is an area for you, if you want to develop this skill, you may want to consult and evaluate your sleep and think about ways to improve your patterns.
I'm going to throw in a bonus book recommendation for today.
That's three, by the way. Three bonus.
Yeah, we have three. So we had Limitless. Okay, that was by Jim Quick. We had The Ideal Team Player by Mr. Patrick Lencioni, written as a fable like all of his books are. Absolutely incredible. And the third is going to be the book When, and that's by Daniel Pink. It really gets into the science of when we are best. You heard Brandon talk about how he's more of a night owl and I'm more of a morning lark. And when we get into understanding where we are most productive in our time capacity, instead of trying to fight it, we can actually own that. I vividly remember a conversation with you, Brandon, where we were going back and forth in San Diego. And I said, man, just own the fact that you're a night owl and it's okay. And I'm totally cool. Like, as we're working together, let's not force some of these areas, because I've seen brilliance that just come out of you at 11, 12 o'clock at night, where you're just up and ideas are flowing. And when you can tap into that, not only is our greatness and genius going to show up just in our brain, but there's a function of our time. And when we can play in that space, we can get much more into it. So Daniel Pink has a lot more to say about that. Jim Quick has a lot more to say about that. We're just giving you just some of the overview of what we've seen by experiencing them. I want to share an Albert Einstein quote as we wrap up with our quote of the week. The measure of intelligence is the ability to change. The measure of intelligence is the ability to change. And that's from Albert Einstein. A lot of the time, right, Brandon, what got us here to this point is not what's going to get us there. It's the shift in growth. For those of you that are business owners, that are entrepreneurs, that are out there, what got you to maybe $500,000 in revenue is going to be very different than what gets you to $1 million or $2 million in revenue. Your whole company, your whole operation is going to have to transform. So being like a chameleon, being able to go through that metamorphosis is a function of growth and change. And there's always going to be that change when we're in the growth cycle. We'll have core elements that we need to maintain, certain habits, but even those habits that have gotten you here, you might have to make some of those micro pivots. Any final thoughts from you, Brandon, on Albert Einstein's quote, the measure of intelligence is the ability to change?
I think if I take that word change and we apply it to each aspect of the growth mindset, the ability to adapt, just understand that we are the captains of our own growth. We are the captains and commanders of our own ability to advance. And I love Einstein's quote here, in so much as if we are willing to stay nimble and absorb and adjust to new discoveries, not only do we position ourselves to do really well as a manager and growth into leadership roles, but we also position ourselves to learn from every single person around us. And I happen to think that makes you a pretty good human. And I don't mind more of us becoming good humans, Darren.
You know, Brandon, I think that's part of what our vision was when we started 34 Strong. We work in the organizational development space and really helping create great places to work. It's really about helping to just create more good humans on the planet and empowering that in our youth. And when people can go to work and they're engaged and they're feeling like they're valued for being valuable, that shift is taking place. How much better are they showing up in the space of parenting, as spouses, and giving to their communities? I couldn't agree with you more. We need more good humans on the planet. What does the world need but just another good blank? Fill in the blank. We need more good humans. And you have the power to do that in growing this particular skill. On that note, we'll leave you there. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will catch you next week. Thanks a lot for your insights, Brandon. If you want to continue your growth in Leading Strong by hanging out with others committed to Leading Strong, join one of our LinkedIn or Facebook groups by looking for The Leading Strong Show. The truth is, organizational results like productivity, profitability, and low employee turnover rise and fall based on employee engagement. The world is starving for strong leaders as they not only impact an organization's performance, they create massive influence on an employee's overall health and well-being. If you want to learn more about becoming a great place to work or 34 Strong's signature Leading Strong programs, simply go to 34strong.com, where you will also be able to access resources you can start using immediately and stay connected with us. I want to thank you for sharing this episode with everyone you know who will benefit. Be sure to subscribe through your favorite podcasting channels, and please leave us a review. A big shout out to Wendell Fishman for writing and arranging the tune Aunt Lion for Leading Strong. Remember, everyone deserves a great place to work, and any workplace can be great. You can create culture by intention and design, and change happens with every life you touch. I am Darren Verasamy, here to help you lead strong. Until next time, my friends, I'm out.